Since 2022, Poland has been playing an increasingly prominent role on the European strategic chessboard. Often seen as just a historical stronghold against Russia, today it asserts itself as an autonomous, confident player, pursuing its interests methodically, sometimes going against the usual rhetoric of European or transatlantic solidarity. To fully understand Polish geopolitics, we need to move beyond simplistic caricatures. This country, shaped by a long and troubled history, has developed a unique worldview, wary of Russia certainly, but also clear-eyed, sometimes suspicious of its Western allies, and deeply rooted in a culture of power politics where national survival comes first. Its Atlanticist orientation is not the result of a lightly made ideological choice, but of a strategic calculation born from historical trauma. It was indeed the Western abandonment at the Yalta Conference in 1945 that sealed its Soviet domination for several decades. From its integration into NATO in 1945 to joining the European Union in 2004, Poland patiently regained its room for maneuver. Today it is faced with the return of war on the continent, the intensification of great power competition, and its own internal changes. It imposes a realistic view of international relations and geopolitics. There are no friends, only interests. Since Russia's war in Ukraine in February 2022, Warsaw has initiated a dramatic overhaul of its defense posture, with a defense budget planned at 4.7% of GDP in 2025, a level unmatched in Europe. Poland is committed to building the continent's leading land military power. The goal is clear: to increase its forces to nearly 300,000 soldiers by 2035, including 250,000 professionals and 50,000 reservists, a model largely inspired by the Ukrainian mobilization, aiming to respond simultaneously to the conventional threat and to strengthen strategic resilience. This rearmament is accompanied by massive equipment acquisitions from the United States, about 400 Abrams tanks, 96 Apache, AH-64 helicopters, HIMARS systems, F-35 aircraft, and so on, as well as major orders from South Korea such as K-2 tanks or K-9 howitzers. Poland is focusing on high-tech weaponry that is interoperable with NATO, supported by local industrial modernization, which also includes maintenance and production centers. Yet behind this declared resolve, the project raises significant questions. First, from a financial standpoint, 2023 marked a historic peak in military funding, but now public finances are facing a more challenging economic reality. In 2024, Poland experienced a clear economic slowdown with a technical recession in the second half of the year, persistent inflation, rising interest rates, and a decrease in domestic consumption. Public debt has crossed the 54% of GDP mark, a threshold that Warsaw wants to stay below. The defense budget announced for 2025, although a record, had to be revised downward, with several acquisition programs being slowed in favor of social spending, especially in rural areas. Next, human resources are a major challenge. Despite the circumstances, recruiting, retaining, and training such a large number of personnel in a context of growing disinterest is a challenge. A recent survey published in 2025 by Le Quotidien, whose name I won't attempt to pronounce, indicates that 52% of Poles oppose the universal military training project proposed by Prime Minister Donald Tusk. At the same time, the brain drain to Western countries, with more than 1.2 million qualified Poles abroad, reduces the pool of competent recruits, while the birth rate falls well below the generational replacement threshold. Finally, logistical coherence is another headache. Poland has acquired a very diverse range of equipment from suppliers as varied as Americans, South Koreans, or from Soviet-era stockpiles. This diversity requires support, maintenance, and logistics systems that demand complex coordination. For example, Abrams and K-2 tanks require separate infrastructures, both for maintenance and for the supply of parts or ammunition. This paradox between quantity and complexity could create an oversized army that's difficult to deploy effectively, expensive to maintain, and vulnerable due to coordination flaws. Unlike NATO logic, where quality always takes precedence over quantity, Poland intends to surpass many European states in numbers while handling this delicate logistical challenge, even though war is obviously never desirable. Politically and militarily, Poland has become one of Washington's closest European partners. This historic bond, strengthened since 2022, has resulted in the permanent presence of several thousand American soldiers on Polish soil, especially in the Poznan garrison, and by the increase in joint exercises in the Baltic region and around the strategic Suwałki corridor, a key point between Poland and the Baltic countries. For Washington, Warsaw is a reliable ally capable of taking on an increasing share of the burden of collective defense in Central and Eastern Europe. I refer you to the latest video, because this buildup obviously also serves the American strategy. First of all, to weaken French projects, but also German ones, for autonomous European defense, which are seen as potentially competing with NATO. By playing this role as a second-tier power with an Atlanticist stance, Poland gains influence and is betting on greater influence within Western institutions dominated by Uncle Sam. But this story would not be complete without highlighting another fundamental pillar of Poland's rise: its integration and economic development, which are largely dependent on the European Union, and more specifically on European funds coming from contributions by member states such as France and Germany. Since joining in 2004, Poland has benefited from about 170 billion euros net in European transfers, which amounts to between 2 and 2.5% of its annual GDP, according to Euronews. These funds mainly come from the cohesion policy and the common agricultural policy, crucial aid that has financed the modernization of its infrastructure, the digitalization of its economy, and its move up the industrial value chain. This windfall of European funds, partly financed by French and German taxpayers, has been crucial in propelling Poland to its current level. In 20 years, Poland's GDP per capita has risen from less than 50% to more than 80% of the European average. Sustained economic growth and the gradual reduction of gaps with Western economies cannot be understood without Poland being a beneficiary state. This economic interdependence creates an ambivalent relationship with its partners. Warsaw fully benefits from European funds while often adopting a Eurosceptic, pragmatic stance, seeking to defend its specific interests within European negotiations, but also aiming to play a major political role as a key beneficiary. This reality amplifies the complexity of its relations with France, which, like Germany, sees Poland as both a strategic ally in Eastern Europe and a major economic beneficiary of the expanded common market. A win-win partnership, but one in which each party maintains its own interests and ambitions. Poland asserts itself in a dual role, as a military partner under protection, and at the same time as a major beneficiary of European contributions, particularly from France and Germany, which have helped make it the actor it is today. This context also fuels the tacit rivalry between Warsaw and Paris when it comes to defining the future strategic and economic trajectories of the continent. We go back to the previous video. This leads to its link with the Ukrainian conflict. Since February 2022, Poland has positioned itself as a key ally of Ukraine, delivering weapons and equipment, welcoming several million refugees, and putting pressure within the European Union to support Kiev. Nevertheless, this alliance remains marked by gray areas and underlying tensions, where historical legacy and economic reality come together. The imposition of Polish embargoes on certain Ukrainian grains, transport blockades, and accusations of social dumping have led Warsaw to fiercely defend its agricultural interests, even at the risk of upsetting Kiev and Brussels. This pragmatic stance highlights Poland's determination not to sacrifice its economic base or social stability for ideological solidarity. On the political front, Poland is now showing more reservations about a rapid entry of Ukraine into the European Union. Several Polish officials emphasize the need for strict conditions, anticipating the massive impact of Ukrainian membership on the European budget. According to estimates, fully integrating Ukraine would require the European Union to redefine allocations amounting to 180 to 200 billion euros over a period of 7 years, which will undoubtedly reduce the transfers currently allocated to Poland, the main net beneficiary of the EU budget, and who has no desire to become a net contributor. The rise in trade tensions and regional competition are fueling growing mistrust between the two countries, each seeking to preserve its role in a reshaped Central and Eastern Europe. Poland, while remaining an ally against Russia, approaches the partnership from the perspective of often divergent interests. So, a realistic, moderate, or even conditional support, and above all, one that depends on the evolution of bilateral relations, where solidarity does not exclude rivalry. For about 15 years, Poland has established itself as a major hub for foreign investment in Central Europe. Many SMEs, mid-sized companies, and multinationals, especially from Germany, the Netherlands, the Nordic countries, or even France, have relocated all or part of their production there. This trend can be explained by a combination of advantages. First of all, the proximity to major European markets, extensively modernized infrastructure thanks to European funds, a skilled and relatively inexpensive workforce, as well as a stable fiscal and regulatory environment. Regions like Lower Silesia or the outskirts of Warsaw have thus been transformed into dynamic industrial and technological hubs. Key sectors such as automotive, electronics, agri-food, pharmaceuticals, logistics, and digital technology concentrate their activities there. In the automotive sector, for example, the Mercedes-Benz Group has established a large electric motor factory in Jawor. In the technology sector, American giants like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have strengthened their presence in Warsaw, making Poland a growing hub for cloud and digital services for all of Central Europe. But this model of success, based on an intermediate industrial position and a competitive workforce, is beginning to reach its limits. With rising wages, the pressure on the job market has increased significantly. According to the OECD, nearly 60% of medium-sized Polish companies report having difficulties recruiting. Above all, Poland now seems to be facing a deeper challenge, the middle income trap. This is a critical threshold where a country, after experiencing rapid catch-up thanks to low-cost production, sees its growth slow down due to a lack of transition to an economy based on innovation, high value-added production, and productivity gains. For example, compared to South Korea or Taiwan, Poland is struggling to develop national industrial and technological champions capable of establishing themselves on a global scale. This transition also faces a major demographic obstacle. The working-age population is gradually decreasing due to persistent immigration to Western Europe and a birth rate that is one of the lowest on the continent. Finally, we will finish with the maritime dimension, which is central to Poland's strategy in the Baltic Sea and has become a major geopolitical theater. The ports of Gdansk, Gdynia, and the other city whose name I can't pronounce embody this desire to assert its economic and security influence. Gdansk, Poland's main port, handled 81 million tons. In 2023, an increase of 19% compared to the previous year, with a vital role in the growing transshipment of liquid fuel in the context of sanctions against Russia. Gdynia, for its part, handles container traffic and industrial exports. Meanwhile, Hesse, on the German border, has developed a liquefied natural gas terminal, crucial for energy diversification, importing American, Qatari, and Norwegian gas since 2016. On the military front, as you may have noticed, the Baltic Sea is now also militarized. The Polski Mors program, launched in 2025, aims to strengthen maritime security with a dedicated naval force, the Warta Baltica. It is responsible for defending national waters from hybrid threats, especially from Russia. Patriot anti-missile systems, modern Michnik frigates, and coastal batteries complete this posture in response to the presence of Kaliningrad, a heavily militarized Russian enclave and a key point in the standoff between Russia and Europe. You see, Poland today embodies a rising regional power built on a triangular strategy that combines a rapidly expanding military, a transparent partnership with Washington, and pragmatic European integration focused on maximizing economic benefits. However, its rise does not hide its weaknesses: financial dependence on European funds, demographic decline, social tensions, and diplomatic uncertainties. And there is also the risky nature of a geopolitical stance that is certainly realistic, but potentially isolating if the European Union were to become more independent from the United States. In a time when alliances oscillate between tactics and volatility, Poland's success will therefore depend on its ability to carry out a profound international transformation.
Militaire, économique, sociale et stratégique.
Poland has understood that more than grand speeches, it is concrete action and real capabilities that ensure the survival of states. Having become a driving and essential force in Europe, it embraces a sometimes harsh realism inherited from its history, which even today must above all ensure the survival of the Polish people. In your opinion, will Poland's geopolitical rise be sustainable, or is it likely to stumble over its own contradictions? Feel free to share your analyses and questions in the comments, or even to express your annoyance about any Polish pronunciation mistakes, and I apologize for that. Also, remember to like the video, subscribe, and share it with others to support the channel. I really want to emphasize this because the algorithm changes often, and your support is vital to continue, especially as some subscribers miss our notifications. Finally, a huge thank you to all the YouTube members and financial supporters of the channel. It's thanks to you that we can continue to produce these videos independently about geopolitical news since 2018. Thank you. This was Quentin for Terra Bellum. See you next time.